Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about Africa's biggest ever market listing. We are talking about Dangote Refinery. Dangote Refinery targets a 5 billion IPO with a prospectus expected as early as September and listing by October 2026. IPO target 5 billion. Barrels a day capacity 650K. Implied valuation $40 billion. The deal at a glance. Dangote Refinery and Petrochemicals ZE has filed with Nigeria Security and Exchange Commission for a landmark public listing. Target raise 5 billion. Expected listing October 2026. Barrels per day 650,000. Implied valuation 40 billion. And based on a 2.5 billion private placement for a 6% stake in the corporation. A big winner from the Iran war, majority owned by Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote. The refinery capitalized fuel scramble. Number one, wartime tailwind. Sold jet fuel across Africa and to Western Europe as countries battled shortages during the Iran war. Expansion ambitions. Raise funds are earmarked to boost Lagos refinery capacity towards 1.4 million barrels per day. 3. Regional replication. Plans to build a similar refinery on the Kenyan coast with East African governments. 4th, import substitution aims to cut Africa's reliance on costly imported fuel and eventually make the continent an exporter. Reality check. Is a 40 billion valuation ambitious? Comparing Dangote's implied valuation with similar sized publicly listed refineries. And we have a graph to show this. Dangote implied valuation 40 billion. Tupras from Turkey 12 billion. HF Sinclair of the US 16 billion. Same capacity, far lower value. Turkey's Tupras runs 4 refineries at Dangote's combined capacity, yet is valued at just 12 billion. US comparable, HF Sinclair, listed in New York, has 678 barrels per day capacity and a 16 billion market cap. The gap. Dangote's private placement implied 40 billion is roughly 2.5 to 3x its closest public peers. This is just a comparison of different IPOs and IPOs similar to Dangote, or should I say refineries similar to Dangote, and the valuation is way lower. But my analysis from this, Dangote Refinery will not only be for Nigeria, it will serve most of West Africa, North Africa as well. And with the Kenyan refinery, if that goes into fruition, it will serve East Africa and all the way to Southern Africa. So the valuation is also based upon future forms of business. That's just my analysis from this $40 billion valuation. Because Africa is definitely an untapped market and has got huge potential in the present and also in the future. The Pan-African play, a listing built for the whole continent. Dangote wants regional markets to participate in an African champion, not just Nigeria. South Africa, Kenya, Egypt, Ghana, and Rwanda. Stock exchanges above have met with Dangote's advisors to explore participation via structured instruments like global depository receipts. 500 million, Kenya's potential share of the raise, driven by tremendous pension fund appetite, per a source close to the deal. USD or Naira, investors will be offered a currency choice, a signal Dangote is courting both local and international capital, while no cross-listing is planned at this stage. What could move the numbers? Open questions that could reshape the deal's size, structure, and appeal before October. Regulatory sign-off pending. The $5 billion target is not final. It depends on what Nigeria's Security and Exchange Commission approves in its review. Valuation gap versus peers. A 40 billion mark implies a premium of roughly 2 to 3x similar size listed refiners. Free float could run thin. Nigeria's exchange rules call for a 20% minimum float, but Dangote's cement precedent sits at just 12.7%. Tight timeline. The source described the IPO's proposed schedule to prospectus and listing as fairly tight. Yes, this might be fairly tight, but Dangote brand is a well-known brand across a lot of African countries and Africa as a whole. So I feel the 5 billion target is justified. All right. The founder, Aliko Dangote, age 69, Africa's wealthiest man. Net worth 31 to 35 billion. And some say his net worth is even more than this. And what industries or sectors has he invested in? Cement, sugar, salt, and vehicle assembly. Kept at home. A conglomerate spanning more than a dozen African countries. And the strategy that stays local. Dangote often points out he's one of the few African billionaires whose vast wealth is at home in Nigeria rather than in offshore accounts. A narrative that reinforces the IPO's framing as a homegrown Pan-African opportunity rather than an extractive one. NPPC's stake. Nigeria's state oil firm holds just over 7% of the refinery. A reminder that the IPO is majority privately controlled, with Dangote's empire keeping the largest share of ownership and upside. A faith-sized bet on African self-reliance. If it's listed as planned, Dangote's refinery would become one of Africa's largest publicly traded companies, a test of whether the continent's own capital markets can fund its own infrastructure. The plans of the diligent lead to profit. Proverbs 21 verse 5. What to watch for? Security and Exchange Commission approval plus prospectus expected in 2026. This is a breakdown of Dangote Refinery's IPO. And this is the Invest with Dennis channel. I hope you learned one or two things. Our focal point is not just the US stock market. We are focused on giving you information that is from different parts of the world, from all over the globe, because I believe there is an opportunity everywhere in this world. And there are investors worldwide craving to be part of the next big thing. This is the Invest with Dennis channel, guys. You can find us on YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram. We talk about different aspects, the economy, investing, personal growth, and everything related. Please feel free to follow, like, or subscribe. Drop some comments. Let's help each other. We're all here to grow. No one is perfect when it comes to finance. Peace and blessings. And I'll definitely see you on the next one. Ciao.